The time is 7:30. We'll bring this meeting to order. All rise for the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A moment of silence to remember the service and sacrifices of the armed service members who protect our nation and the first responders who protect our neighborhoods. Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Here.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Here.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Here.
Councilmember Smith? Here. Councilmember Sackett?
Here.
Councilmember Kelly?
Here.
Councilmember Jackson?
Here.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Here.
President Jelinek?
Here. This meeting was advertised in accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6 at SEEK. Notice was published in the Township's official newspapers, the Daily Record, on November 21, 2018, and the Star Ledger on November 14, 2018. Notice was posted on the official bulletin board of Rockaway Township. Next on the agenda, designation of Sergeant at Arms. Township Code 2-5.15, decorum. While the council is in session, the members shall preserve order and decorum. The council president, at his or her discretion, shall direct the chief of police or such other person in the police department as he may designate to be the sergeant at arms at the council meeting. The sergeant at arms shall employ reasonable means to maintain the proper order and decorum consistent with accepted standards. I see the Chief McParland is absent from this meeting. Is it, Captain Ryerson, will you be acting as the sergeant at arms for this meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The accepted standard is that members of the audience are asked to keep their volume to an inaudible level so that business can be conducted and so that those who are speaking can be clearly heard. If an individual becomes audible, the sergeant at arms is expected to ask the individual to reduce their volume to an inaudible level or ask the individual to leave the meeting room as necessary. Captain Ryerson, did you understand that standard? Thank you. Before we proceed with the rest of the agenda, council members received an email this morning raising some concerns, I guess about the, for lack of a better word, the elected positions of the council by Mr. Schmidt, who is a public advocate, who's known to Rockaway Township and its residents. Rather than paraphrase those concerns, Mr. Schmidt, I think I see you here in the audience. Would you mind coming up to the microphone and just describing the concerns that you emailed us about? I don't want to incorrectly state what those were.
Wouldn't that be good?
Good evening. John Schmidt, Gloucester City, New Jersey.
Pull the microphone up. You have to get close. You can take it off the stand as well.
Good evening, John Schmidt, Gloucester City, New Jersey. In regards to your question, One thing I noticed with your, how do I say, your town...
Could you hold for a moment? Mr. Iacofano, could you please turn off your cell phone?
I'm trying to read my email with Mr. Jediak. Please continue.
In regards to the Township Code, had a 2-year term for elected officers of this council, as well as your reorg minutes, which I always thought was kind of odd. And last night, about 5:30 in the morning, I'm scrolling through Faulkner, and I came to section 180. It's pretty much in the back of, and section 180C essentially states that at the organization meeting of the council will elect a council president chosen among the council. Now, an organization meeting is held every year. There wasn't any case law that I could find to determine whether it's, what that means by organization. Organization, though, being a yearly thing, it would imply that the election of council president occurs at the organization meeting. So every organization meeting, there would be an election of the council president. Most Faulkner Acts and all Faulkner Acts that I have seen follows that pattern, with the exception of Rockaway. And that was my concern. My other concern was, since the motion was made not to elect, in this case, Mr. Jedniak as council president, the motion was made to appoint him for a 2-year term. According to the minutes, was that motion an invalid motion? If it was invalid, it would have, an invalid motion can't obviously pass. So those were my concerns, and hopefully I addressed them.
Yeah, thank you. If you could just stay there in case we need clarification. So upon receiving Mr. Schmidt's email this morning, I forwarded the message to Mr. Iacofano, our township attorney, asking for a legal opinion with regard to the matters raised by Mr. Schmidt in his message, and I also specifically asked 3 questions. Number 1, does Township Code 2-5.8, which discusses the election of council president and vice president, does it comply with NJSA 40:69A-180C, which is the section of the municipal charter law, Faulkner Act, which Mr. Schmidt referenced in his email. Question number 2, is Township Code 2-5.8 lawful in establishing 2-year terms for council president and council vice president? Question number 3, were the 2 motions passed at the January 2nd, 2018 reorganization meeting to respectively elect a council president and council vice president lawful? Those are the 3 questions. Do those 3 questions accurately reflect the core of the issues that you raised?
Yes.
Okay.
Go
ahead, Mr. Schmidt.
The only thing else I put in my letter for disclosure was that, and obviously state statute would trump local law. Local law can be stricter than statute, but not greater.
So one example of that would be, we've been, as part of an ongoing discussion, we received information that state statute says that reorganization meetings can happen in the first week of January, but our local code says it must happen on the first Tuesday of January, which is a more stricter version of the state. So that's an example of that, Mr. Schmidt.
You could say that the January 1st is the traditional, or was the traditional date, and then over time it's become like any time in the first week. But yeah,
that's an example of state statute and the code being more.
You can make it stricter, yes.
Okay, thank you. So later in the morning, Mr. Iacofano, our township attorney, responded to my email and stated that essentially that we would not be able to receive legal advice from the township attorney on this issue today. Mr. Iacofano, has that changed since your email?
I appreciate if you read my entire email like you read the entire email previously.
I didn't read an entire email, Mr. Iacofano, but would you please answer my question? Are you prepared to provide us with legal advice on the
You were
question?
advised earlier today that in view of your two requests, we would not be answering them tonight.
Okay, so then the question I have for you, Mr. Iacofano, is can this meeting proceed with myself serving as council president and Ms. Abrahamson serving as council vice president? Lawfully, can this meeting lawfully proceed?
If you had those concerns, Council President, why didn't you ask them before the meeting?
I did. They're essentially part of the questions that were
Why
asked.
didn't you ask them before the meeting and after receiving my response if you felt it was essential to proceeding tonight?
I'm asking you right now, Mr. Iacofano, should this meeting proceed?
My opinion is that the meeting may proceed.
Okay. Thank you for that. While we have you, Mr. Schmidt, is there anything else you'd like to say?
In regards to that issue?
Any other issues since we have you here
I
this
mean,
evening?
if I can wait to the public comment.
Well, if we have you here, I see you're on the list. Anything you'd like to talk about?
Okay. Can I just grab something from my?
Sure, take your time.
Nobody else gets to.
Point of order. Council President,
Mr. Sackey, what is your point of order?
if we're going to have Mr. Schmidt speak, you might as well let everyone speak. You're not going to be here all night.
So,
Let him talk during the public
Mr.
session like he said he wanted
Mr.
to.
Sackey.
Otherwise, let everyone else speak. This makes no sense. We'll be here until 1:30 in the morning again.
Mr. Sackett,
Ridiculous.
Mr. Sackett, a point of order is to raise a question of order.
Let everyone speak.
That's the question. The question of order is, what do you find to be out of order?
Him speaking now when it's not open public session.
Well, I'm allowing him to speak because the issue that was before us as to whether or not, Mr. Sackett, I'm over here, with regard to the question of whether this meeting could proceed, that's why I asked Mr. Schmidt to come up here. And since he's up here, I thought we would save some time by simply having him continue with whatever else he has. Mr. Schmidt, you can approach the
If
microphone.
anyone objects,
Just approach the microphone, Mr.
object.
Schmidt.
I object. Let's have a seat and wait till everyone else speaks. It's not fair.
I've responded to Mr. Sackett's point of order. Mr. Schmidt, take the microphone.
Take my 5 minutes now.
Thank you.
I already said my name and time. Yes, I did come to speak on another issue. Last week, on December 7th, 2018, myself and Mary Hollenbeck filed a pro se action against the Township of Rockaway. As you know, I have come up to this council to speak about the Open Public Meetings Act and issues with the Open Public Meetings Act on multiple occasions. On October 23rd, there was a council meeting where I spoke, which I addressed a number of concerns, including the illegality of that meeting. I subsequently spoke more in detail of that on the 16th of November, and the December 7th was 45 days from October 23rd. The lawsuit is against the Township of Rockaway. It does not name any individual council members in the lawsuit. I think Rockaway, as you know, was sued a couple years ago, about 6-7 years ago, in Kelly v. Rockaway for failure to approve meeting minutes. That was one of the issues that had come up in this lawsuit. The main issues is 2 meetings or 2 newspapers and holding a public meeting properly, and October 23rd was not done properly. November 8th was canceled. November 27th, no remedial action was ever taken on the 23rd. And the 23rd also is where you took action on all items from the 20th and 26th. So essentially, those actions are also bought in because you retook action on them. In the case, the other issue was the closed session resolution, which I did. I gave you an example of a compliant resolution. I spoke about the need to have an estimated time as required by the statute in the resolution. Your resolution has slightly changed, but it still fails to meet the basic compliance for statute. And so I just wanted to speak on that to the council. I want to let all the council people know it's nothing personal against any individual. This township needs to come into compliance with OPMA. You've had 2 OPMA lawsuits in the last decade, which you lost. That is very uncommon. and I believe it might be the first time actions were voided in this vicinage, in this county. I don't have a solution to what the answer is. Obviously, went to court 7 years ago, you got an order, fix it. I guess he complied with it for a couple of years, it fell off. You had a case about how to properly notice a meeting. Well, that still wasn't compliance with that, and full remedial action. What we are seeking in the complaint is a court-appointed monitor for the Township of Rockaway. Normally, a court-appointed monitor is a retired judge of the Superior Court. In the complaint, we did list 2 out of the 3 prospective people. We listed two retired assignment judges. I listed them because of I know respect in the legal community that they have. They're recently both retired in the last 3 years, and they're from out of Morris County to avoid a conflict of interest. I'm transparent with the case. I'm not asking for any actions to be voided. Under Section 16 of the Act, you can go to the court, you can ask for the actions to be voided. Under Section 15, Section 16, you can ask for injunctive relief. And it says that the court has discretion to fashion an appropriate remedy to ensure compliance. And that's why I'm going to a monitor, because obviously this township has a history, this governing body, past governing bodies, it's this township. And I think I hope if I'm successful, that a monitor could come in to straighten out the problems, to have a lasting impact for compliance well into the future.
Was that it, Mr. Schmidt? Did you have anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
I actually have a question for Mr. Schmidt, if I may.
Mr. Kelly.
Council President, there should not be any discussion of a pending lawsuit.
I think this would be necessary. I do appreciate your advice, Mr. Honor.
Mr. Kelly.
To the attorney, may be present in the township's interest, Mr. Kelly, which would not be surprising.
Mr. Kelly, can we talk about it? Still, I respect your information, Mr. Honor.
Floor is yours, Mr. Kelly.
Mr. Schmidt, with relation to your...
Here's the
You
microphone.
gotta start paying attention to the rules. I'm leaving, but I've had it with you. Everybody's had it with you.
Sergeant at Arms.
You do that.
Continue, Mr. Kelly.
Sorry for that, Mr. Schmidt. The question I do have for you that you had brought up as part of your litigation, and I'm not getting into the body of the litigation, is there a possibility of a settlement to resolve any litigation?
Why don't you send him an email?
Well, there's 2. I'm
Sergeant
hoping
at Arms,
there's-
please bring the room to order.
I just turn around to the other co-plaintiff. I don't think if the council wants to settle, we could probably work a settlement up, whether you want to do it in public or closed session. We're open to a settlement. And, probably save everyone time and...
Well, if we go in, what would be a potential offering of a settlement on your end? We're not offering anything on ours.
But I'm pretty steadfast. I want the township to comply with Section 13 of the Act in terms of a resolution, and maybe adopting something that both sides agree to. And the other one is I would insist on a monitor for a period of time.
That's it?
Yes.
Anything else, Mr. Kelly?
Resign.
Okay, hearing nothing else, thank you, Mr. Schmidt. As I said earlier, Mr. Schmidt is a public advocate. He's known to Rockaway Township. I share the concerns of what appears to be years of issues with regard to compliance, and I appreciate that they've been brought to light so that corrective actions can be taken. With regard to the meeting notice for the remainder of the year was addressed, and I expect that the annual meeting notice should not become an issue for 2019 and beyond that. Next item on the agenda we have is the approval of the minutes. Item 7, we have minutes of June 26, 2018, regular meeting, July 10, 2019, regular meeting, November 16, 2018, special meeting, November 27, 2018, regular meeting. Is there a motion to, Sergeant at Arms, please bring the room to order. Mr. Sackett, where do you see a typo?
B.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sackett. We have June 26, 2018, regular meeting, July 10, 2018, regular meeting, November 16, 2018, special meeting, November 27, 2018, regular meeting. Is there a motion to move all 4 of the minutes?
I'll move them.
Motion by Abrahamson, second by Kelly. Any discussion on these minutes? Councilmember Jackson, you look like you have a question. So the question about voting. For instance, if you weren't present for a meeting or didn't have an opportunity to review the minutes and you wish to abstain on them, as an example, simply say, I'd like to, as an example, abstain on June 26th and yes to the rest, or no to the rest. Or
Yep. Okay.
Are there any other questions with regard to procedure or the minutes themselves? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes, to all.
Councilmember Friedlander?
No on A and B, and yes on C and D.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes, on all.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes on all.
Councilmember Sackett?
No on A and B, yes on C and D.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes to all.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes to D, abstain to all the others.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes on all.
President Jedenak?
Yes to all. We have a majority vote for each of the 4 minutes. The minutes are adopted. Next on the agenda is council appointments. We will vote on the appointments separately. First is Junior Fireman's Auxiliary, Shelley Mall. Is there a motion?
I'll motion.
Motion by Smith, second by Kelly. Is there any discussion on the appointment? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Ca- Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Jedenak?
Yes, I count 9 yes, 0 no, 0 abstentions. Appointment is passed. The next appointment we have is Zoning Board of Adjustment, full member, Ms. Joy Weinreich, who is currently an alternate member, who's being appointed to a full member position on the zoning board. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Smith, second by Friedlander. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Jedenak?
Yes. I count 9 yes, 0 no, 0 abstentions. With regard to council appointments, last week on the Township website, all currently expiring or expired appointments by the council have been advertised. This is the first year that that has taken place in advance of a year of appointments. You would recall that in January, with the new council leadership, we advertised them when we took office then, and we're advertising them again for the next year in advance of that year. We're asking those who are interested to please apply by December 19th. The applications go through the clerk's office. The instructions are on the Township website. I believe it was posted in the Star Ledger the Daily Record this past Sunday, and will appear again in the Daily Record this coming Sunday, and has been shared on social media as well. So there are multiple appointments for multiple boards. If you're interested in serving on any of those boards, they are all volunteer boards. There's more information about them on the Township's website. You can also email the clerk's office with any questions you might have about those volunteer positions, and we thank all who are interested in serving. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Resolutions R18-201, R18-202, and R18-204. Is there a motion?
Second.
I'll second.
Motion by Abrahamson, second by Sackett. Typically, there's not discussion on the consent agenda. And hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes, Donald.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Jedenak?
Yes. I count 9 yes, 0 no, 0 abstentions. Consent agenda is passed. Next on the agenda, item number 10 is new business. We have discussion of R18-199, resolution amending the Township's policies and procedure manual. This is a continuation of discussion that took place at the last council meeting. Since the mayor is not present this evening, Ms. Seeger, would you like to present resolution R18-199 to us and perhaps pick up the discussion where it left off at the last meeting?
This was recommended by our...
Can you pull the microphone up?
This was recommended by Jeff to update it, and we get a discount on our exposure for every case that we sent all the backup to all the council. And this is a change to the policy procedure manual. It's just updating it for communication policy, discrimination, employment proof, employee dating policy. There's just a few things that they updated, that they recommended, and we have to do this as part of our renewal if we want the discount. And we did this in 2016. Same thing.
So there were some questions that came up at the last meeting with regard to the language of the previous draft of the resolution before the council referenced both a policy and procedure manual as well as an employee handbook, and I believe we received a response from the labor attorney, Mr. Ryan, with regard to that. Do you want to share that response, or shall I?
You can do it.
Okay. Essentially, what we were told is that, so as some of us are aware, there is currently only a policy manual. There is not an employee handbook yet. The resolution referenced both, and we didn't have a copy of it because there isn't one. We were informed by Mr. Ryan that both documents were established by ordinance, and although the JIF doesn't require both to be in existence, we still need to have the resolution make the same amendments to both. And the suggestion was made by Mr. Ryan, I believe, that in the coming year, an ordinance be introduced to amend the existing code to eliminate any references to employee handbook, which does not currently exist. Does that capture the conversation?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Ryan is here.
Oh, I didn't see him. I'm sorry, Mr. Ryan. Come on up to the microphone. We have empty seats up front for you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yes, Council President, that's correct. I mean, historically, there were actually two documents, an employee handbook as well as the personnel policy and procedure manual, and therefore my recommendation is moving forward in that the township really does not rely any longer on the employee handbook because it was all incorporated into the personnel policy and procedure manual, that an appropriate ordinance be considered in 2019 to effectively eliminate all references to the employee handbook. And that strategy also was reviewed with Jeff, and Jeff is comfortable with that and recommends that.
And I believe you shared an email to that effect with us.
Yes.
In communication with the Jeff regarding that.
Yes. And then I also just wanted to mention, because I know a concern at the last meeting was with regard to the one amendment referring to the Open Public Meetings Act procedure, and a very valid point was brought up in terms of the exclusive language that read the discussion of an employee shall be held in closed session. We went back, reviewed that with the Jeff. They concurred. That's been changed to may. And I would emphasize that also the amendment provides ultimately the guidance as to notification of employees, because the concern about rights was mentioned. Notification of employees and the right to have discussion in executive or the open session should be discussed with and be based upon guidance and advice of legal counsel and recent court decisions. So those clarifications were made.
And the Open Public Meeting Act procedure is Section 5 on the resolution for those who have it in front of them or are looking at it. There's also a concern about the last meeting that one of the last sections stated that a copy of the manual or handbook shall be distributed to township employees within 60 days of the resolution, but the resolution takes effect immediately. That language appears to continue to be in this resolution before us.
Yeah, that's what the JIF requested. However, we're really going to ultimately take action to eliminate the employee handbook. So once that has been done, paragraph 9 actually will become moot.
And is there any time frame within which the township is expected or required to provide the policy manual to employees?
I believe the policy manual is already available to employees.
Yes, and every
provided
employee-
The amended one.
Oh, the new one, what,
The
to
amended.
amend this? We'll send out the resolution to amend it and give it to the employees to have with their handbook.
Will there be a signature for receipt of that from each employee?
Yes.
Or they received it?
Yes?
And the 2016 manual is linked on the township website under the transparency section of the website. The amended, it'll be a 2019, 2018 manual?
I'll put this resolution right next to it, and then when we redo it next year, we plan on redoing the whole book. We will hand out another book and then put the new one up.
Okay, so a new policy manual won't be created until next calendar year, reflecting the changes being made in this resolution.
No, I'll hand out the resolution and ask them to sign it, that they see it
Understood.
and update
As
it.
an addendum sheet.
Yes,
But the existing policy manual on our website won't be updated until next calendar year, incorporating these changes.
correct.
Okay.
That's the plan.
Does that seem sufficient from a labor perspective?
Yes, I believe that will be sufficient. These will be made public and available to all the employees.
Okay.
That's the key.
What was the due date to the insurance provider with regards to the changes to the manual?
When the letter came out in April, it was sent to the former BA in April, and I got it in June. It was October 1st. but when I saw what the requirements were, there was a lot of requirements that had to be done. I had to schedule training, which was scheduled for September for all the employees. Then another training was done in November. So by the time I scheduled everything, this was the earliest that I could put on the agenda, was the last meeting. Because I had to do everything on that checklist. And I called up Jeff, and she said, with everything that's going on here, with 5 mayors since August, and unfortunately our mayor passing, that she would give us to the end of the year.
There was also a request made from the council to have a side-by-side comparison with regard to the changes that were made. Do any other council members have any questions, or is there any other discussion with regard to this policy manual? No. Okay. As I looked at the information provided and I shared it with the rest of the council, on the JIF's website, there is a model manual, and I went and did some side-by-side comparison. Is it fair to say that we essentially adopt the model that is on the JIF's website with modifications for the insertion of the name of the township and only minor other changes to the model?
Yes, I think that's a reasonable description of it, yes.
It's essentially copy and paste when there are changes made.
Yes,
swap out.
certainly, as you can see with their communication media policy, it's a 4-page modification, or I would better describe it as a replacement.
But it's essentially a copy and paste out of the model and into ours?
Yes.
And that's generally how we do the updates. The same thing for the Open Public Meetings Act.
Generally, the JIF works with its member municipalities to follow the case law and any modifications in the law through the year, and at the end of each year, they'll seek revisions in all of the municipalities like this.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions from the council? Hearing none. Would anyone like to move resolution, since we're only under discussion, is there anyone who'd like to move resolution R18-199?
Second.
So, motion by Abrahamson, second by Sackett. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll on resolution R18-199.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Jedonak?
Yes. I count 9 yes, 0 no, 0 abstentions. Next section of the agenda is new business. Item A is discussion of resolution R18-185, a resolution amending resolution R18-21, granting authorization to retain professional services, the cost of which were anticipated to exceed the bid threshold in accordance with local public contracts law. Ms. Seeger, Ms. Palmieri, do you want to introduce this resolution to us?
This resolution is to update the not-to-exceed amount that we paid our professionals that we approved in January, which was a best guess estimate on what we were going to spend, and it's required by the local public finance notice, LFN 21710. So we haven't overspent our budget. We are just changing the not-to-exceed amount to stay in compliance.
Does anyone have any questions about R18-185? Ms. Smith?
I just want to clarify, the money is in the budget we're not asking for extra money, we're going to use the money that was approved when the budget was approved.
That's correct. We're not asking for additional funds.
Thank you.
For the budget.
Are there any other questions or comments from the council? I have a few. When R18-21 was initially drafted and adopted by the council in January, am I correct in understanding that Dewberry Engineers was not included on the list?
Yes.
We asked for some additional information with regard to R18-185. We were provided a spreadsheet by the CFO which lists the seven professional services vendors that were on 21, whose amounts are changing. Is that correct?
Correct.
The spreadsheet that I have has Eisenberg Appraisal Associates, the third one listed. It shows it listed on R18-185 as $35,000 as the new amount. The resolution we have before us corresponds to that. Yeah, did 185 change?
I had amended that resolution to include 37,000.
Yeah, because that's what I have, actually. But the one in front of us,
It's 35.
we have one in front of us for the meeting packet's 35, but one we received an email is 37. What is the correct number?
The correct number is 37.
Okay. So we'll, since we're still discussing this, we'll just amend this to say 37, if that's the correct amount.
Is that the Eisenberg?
At number 3, Eisenberg Appraisal Associate. Ms. Palmieri, could you go over the spreadsheet with us that you sent us?
Sure.
What it shows us?
So the spreadsheet shows the 2018 the 2018 charges for the budget. It shows the 2017 charges for the budget, the capital, the escrow, and the total amount spent for the whole 2018 through November 30th. And then you compare it with what was originally approved in R18-21 with what we are actually now requesting for R18-185.
Those are the far right columns, 18,
Correct.
185, and 21. Can you explain why there are 2017 dollars?
Sure. These are what was actually dispersed in 2018. So where you see the column 2017, those are for services that cover the year 2017, but were paid in 2018. So in other words, like a legal invoice, I'll get the December 2017 bill in 2018 and pay it in 2018.
And when you say pay it in 2018, you mean issue a check?
Issue a check.
But the funds are paid out of the 17 budget or the
Correct.
18 budget?
The 2017 budget.
So the funds are encumbered in a budget year, and regardless of when they're paid in that current year or the subsequent year, the funds are paid out of that year's budget in which they were encumbered?
Yes, when the services were performed.
Okay. So even though we see what looks like 2017, those are 2017 budget expenditures, not 2018 budget expenditures?
Correct.
And the 2018 budget expenditures are actually 2018 budget expenditures?
Correct.
Can you describe the capital and escrow columns?
Sure. Capital is self-explanatory. It's charges that are not towards a certain budget year. They're just charged to a capital ordinance. And the escrow are for services that the developer would be responsible for. So we pay the service directly to the vendor, but the developer actually fronts the town the money, and then we use those funds to pay the engineer or whoever it might be.
Okay. Are there any questions among the council? Is there any further discussion on this resolution? Would anyone like to move this resolution?
Second.
So I have moved by Palumbo, second by Jackson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Jadanak?
Yes. I count 9 yes, 0 no, 0 abstentions. Resolution R18-185 passes. Next item on the agenda is 11B, Mayor's appointment with advice and consent of council. We have Corinne, can the administration advise me on the correct pronunciation of her last name?
Gardapi.
Corinne Gardapi as tax collector. We have Resolution R18-200, resolution appointing a tax collector for the Township of Rockaway. Is there a motion?
Make a motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. Kelly, second by Smith. Is there any discussion with regards to this appointment? Any questions by the council? Before you do that, I forgot to ask the administration, Ms. Seeger, to present the appointment to the council.
The mayor, on behalf of the mayor, he would like to appoint Ms. Gardapi as the tax collector. She's been the assistant tax collector here and has been performing the job since our tax collector left. She's qualified, she's certified, and we highly recommend Ms. Gardapi for this position.
Mr. Kelly,
Two things. She was
can you pull the microphone?
She was the only one that was certified that applied for the position?
Correct.
And the other question I had was that we had the most recent tax sale that we were doing, or that's actually coming up, right? It's coming up, it's in there? Then I'll take back the question I had with regard to that. I was going to ask how we were doing and the preparation and what we were doing there. It will be her first one that she has, just to see how she did. But I'll hold that for the next meeting in the reorg.
Okay,
No other questions other than that?
thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll on resolution R18-200.
Councilmember Quinn?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Jelinek?
Yes, I count 9 yes, 0 no, 0 abstentions. Congratulations.
And for everybody who knows her name, everybody knows her as Corey.
Next on the agenda, we have reports.
Mr. Council President, can I make a motion under new business?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't ask if there was any other new business.
No, you didn't.
Do you have new business, Mr. Friedlander?
Yeah, I'd like to suggest two things. I'd like to move open to the public, which is number 14, where 13 closed session is, right after the reports. Flip those two.
I second that.
Okay. I'm going to exercise my discretion as council president to leave the agenda as is. What is your second item, Mr. Friedlander? You had another item, Mr. Friedlander?
Yes, I do.
What's your other item for new business?
I want to change the reorg meeting from January 1st to January 8th.
Yeah, so as we discussed at the beginning of the meeting, I'm just going to pull out my notes since I put them away already. I received a memo from Mayor Puzio Sunday evening via the business administrator. The memo requested changing the reorg meeting date, referenced a state statute, an unspecified state statute. So I responded to Mayor Puzio asking for the statute. By the clerk, Mr. Iacofano responded with the statute, and I responded to Mr. Iacofano asking how that statute interacts with the Township Code. So the statute that's referenced, and I had actually asked for a full copy of the statute. The council has yet to receive that from the Township Attorney. And in fact, the response that I received with regard to the other issue that we talked about earlier with regard to reorg meetings, Mr. Iacofano was covering both when he said that I had requested 2 legal opinions and we would not be getting legal advice on either this evening. Mr. Iacofano, has that changed with regard to this specific issue of the date of the reorg meeting? Or will we still not have legal advice on that tonight? Thank you for confirming that, Mr. Iacofano. So the partial statute that was quoted by Mr. Iacofano states, may be held on any day during the first week in January. The motion that I just heard was for January 8th. Weeks have 7 days for all of us in this room, which would mean you need to have it on at least before the 8th.
And you can do it.
So I think that is an error, but we still have advice, we still have legal advice that we've requested that hopefully we will get sometime in the near future. But I would compare, and this was in my email, which the entire council received because I asked the clerk to share it with the entire council, and she did. While the statute says the first week of January, the Township Code 2-5.2, copies of which are over on the side table, says in its first statement, the council shall meet annually for organization on the first Tuesday of January at 7:30 p.m. Again, more restrictive than the state statute. The only way that I currently see to be in compliance with both the statute and the code is to adhere to the more stricter of the two, which is the code, which would mean the first two, Sergeant at Arms, would you please bring the room to order? So the first Tuesday in January this year is January 1st. In my request to Mr. Iacofano, the Township Attorney, I asked a number of questions because as I look back for precedent. I look back at our agendas, previous meetings. Has this ever happened before? So it turns out, if you look, you have to go back to 2013. That was the last year that the first Tuesday in January landed on a 1st of January. And in that year, when Councilman Quinn, who's on the phone, was the council president at the time, Mr. Iacofano was the township attorney at the time, the reorganization meeting that year was held on the 8th, which is interesting because it's still not the first week of January. So here are the questions that I asked the township attorney for advice on. Number one, did the township violate the state statute when it held the 2013 reorganization meeting on January 8th after the first week of January? Question number two, does the first sentence of the Township Code 2-5.2 comply with the state statute? Question number three, will the township be in compliance with this first sentence of the Township Code 2-5.2 if the annual reorganization meeting is held after January 1, 2019? And fourth, will the township be in compliance with the state statute if the 2019 reorganization meeting is held on January 8th as it was in 2013? Anticipating that someone here might ask for the 8th, which they did. As we are also already all aware, the township attorney has said that we will not get advice on these questions tonight. Therefore, I really don't know what else there is to discuss with regard to this, so we will move on beyond this item. Is there any other new business among the council?
But on that, it says if it lands on a holiday, you're not talking.
Thank you.
That's a regular.
Excuse me. So Mr. Friedlander, the first sentence has to do with the reorg meeting. The operative word that I would look for in the second sentence is thereafter, right? This is why we need legal advice on this. I think that out of an abundance of caution, we don't need to start off 2019 with an unnecessary, perhaps violation of the code or statute of our very first meeting. I think the public has a right to be confident that the meetings of the governing body are held in accordance with not only the state statutes but the code. And to the extent that we're made aware of where that hasn't happened in the past, we should learn from that example and set a course that improves upon that. And that's what I'm doing.
I hope so, yeah.
And that is why I've sought advice on it. And if we hear nothing, I think the course is clear for January 1st, but we'll see what advice we ultimately get. So is there any other?
Comment.
Ms. Abrahamson?
I just want to make a comment. I did some, after I received those emails too, I did some research. Mr. Wachowski, who left, his father is a alderman in Booton. And their reorg meeting, right here on the web, is January 1st, 2018, 19. Parsippany this year was January 1st, 2018. It's a traditional day for reorg meetings. It is. The fire department, our fire department has a yearly January 1st swearing in of new officers. Excuse me, but it's still on January 1st. And it's a swearing in of new officers for the year.
Excuse me, Ms. Abrams. Sergeant at Arms, please bring the room to order. There should not be audience members yelling out.
So it's not out of the norm that it's January 1st. And who wants to get sued again? We're trying to be compliant to OPMA procedures. You laugh, but that's what you brought forth, and that's what we're doing. We're trying to do. Correct mistakes of years past and current.
Are there any other comments among the council? Mr. Kelly, can you just grab the microphone, please?
I just have one question, and just so that Mr. Freelander, we're all on the same page. After rereading it again from what your motion was originally, and then now rereading the code that we don't want to violate, are you in agreement that the code does stay?
Yeah, I understand that.
But do you agree with the code?
That it says that right now?
Yes, okay. So would you want to take back your motion? Do you want to rescind on your motion?
No.
Okay.
I'd still rather see it a different day.
Yeah, and
The second, the third, it can be done.
So my suggestion is...
No, you have plenty of time to...
But it's excuse me, if I may, Mr. President.
Mr. Kelly, so just so we're all clear, Mr. Kelly has the floor.
But just so we understand, though, if that would be against the code, though, if we were to go against the first Tuesday of that year, you understand that?
Okay, so my suggestion would be, look, I don't know that anyone is necessarily thrilled about having a meeting on the 1st, but that is what the code says, absent any legal advice to the contrary. That is how we will proceed. This is the last regular meeting of this calendar year. An ordinance can be introduced in January or February, sometime next year, to amend the code, to give this governing body more flexibility while still being in compliance with the state statute. So if that is what the governing body would like to do in 2019, I would encourage that to be followed and an ordinance be introduced. And an ordinance requires 2 meetings, a specific amount of time for notice in between the 2 meetings, and separate public input. That's why ordinance cannot be changed any longer this year. So I would, if there's interest in doing that among the council, is there interest in doing that among the council, exploring that for next year to amend?
Sure. Yes.
So then I would refer that to the administration and the township attorney to draft something accordingly for 2019 that would give us that flexibility, but we are still seeking the advice on the questions that are outstanding in 2018. Is there any other new business? Mr. Kelly?
We still, in all fairness to Mr. Freelander, he did make a motion and it was second. If he's not choosing to rescind it, should we still move forward with the...
Yeah, I have discretion as council president. So I've already, we're not going... You know what?
It's a reorg meeting, though.
Okay, so I'd like to move beyond this discussion because we don't have all the information we need. Excuse me, Mr. Sackett. Mr. Sackett.
I'm sorry?
I did second the other thing that you pulled on. To have the open public before the closed session.
Yeah, so we're going to...
Just recognize that you made the motion, that's all, gentlemen. And I just...
Okay. Is there any other new business among the council? Hearing none. Next on the agenda, we have reports, starting with the council. We will go in roll call order. Mr. Quinn, who's on the phone, do you have a report?
Yes, I do.
The floor is yours.
I attended the 8th grade graduation for football and cheerleading, the dinner with fellow council people, Freelander, Sackett, and Joe Jackson, and the mayor. It was a great event, and it was well attended by all the kids. It was something that we look forward to, and the kids look forward to. It was nice. It was great. I also attended the menorah lighting and the Christmas tree lighting, which brings our town together for a great event. And the kids really enjoyed watching Santa and see him come on that fire truck. Other than that, those are my reports.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Next, we have Mr. Freelander.
No committee reports, but in case I don't see anybody before the end of the year, have a happy and a healthy Christmas and New Year.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Palumbo.
I also attended the menorah lighting for Hanukkah on December 3rd, and Christmas tree lighting on December 7th. Great events, well done. Jack, how come you didn't tell them what kind of hat you were wearing on the 7th?
They can see it in the picture.
Jack had a hat that was all kinds of lit up. It was pretty cool. So it was great. Great day, great nights. Great job, everybody. That's it, Council President.
Next, Councilmember Smith.
I too attended the menorah lighting, the Christmas tree lighting, and I echo their sentiments about the great event. Oh, my thing was off. I too attended the menorah and the Christmas tree lighting. They were great events. And I just want to wish everyone a Happy New Year and a Merry Christmas.
Next is Councilmember Sackett.
On November 30th, I also attended the varsity football banquet with Councilman Friedlander, Councilman Jackson, Councilman Quinn, and Mayor Puccio. It's a nice evening. Great to see a lot of families out there for a great event. On December 1st, I attended at Christ Church a documentary put on by the Rockaway Township Substance Abuse Alliance and Les Wexler, made by two 8th grade students from Copeland Middle School. It was a nice little documentary. They did a great job on that. Also later in the day, I attended the Victorian Christmas celebration, the Ford Face House. I ran into Councilman Kelly along with Mayor Puccio, and they've done a great job with the house there, with all the hard work that's been done. On Monday, December 3rd, we had the Hanukkah celebration in the municipal building. It was great that I was able to lead the prayers and sing and dance around a lot of fellow residents. I was happy to see so many people out. It was very well attended. The next night, December 4th, we had the Citizen Recreation Committee meeting. Any resident who's interested in applying to be on the Citizen Recreation Committee, please send a resume to Mayor Puccio and for him to review if you're interested. The meetings are Tuesday nights once a month at 7:15 right here in the municipal building. Friday, December 7th, I also attended the Christmas tree lighting here with special guest Santa Claus. And it was nice to see him come in on the fire truck. It was a real cold night, and the Recreation Department did a really great job. So Brian Coward and everyone else, it was excellent. December 8th was the nice White Meadow Lake holiday party. I see a lot of people are in attendance that attended it. It was a great time. It was fun to dance with a lot of residents and catch up. Real fun night, so I want to thank Mike and the rest of everyone from the POA for a great, fun evening. I want to thank Town Engineer Allison Ferrante and Al Knopf, DPW Super, for the diligent work on a dangerous issue we had at 130 West Lake Shore. The residents of Ward 4 and myself thank you for all your hard work on that project. Also today, I attended the unveiling of the Copeland Middle School Cougar, and I want to thank Principal Ganella and Ronnie Johnson for inviting me. It was a fun morning, and it was great to see all the kids' faces as they were very excited when the Cougar was unveiled. And lastly, I just wanted to wish everyone a happy holiday season and a great New Year's. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Councilmember Kelly.
I'm going to just echo what my colleagues have already echoed about. We had the Ford Fascia House, which was a phenomenal event. If anybody ever gets an opportunity to go there, what they've done to restore that and bring it back, especially the new wing that they've added on there, it is incredible with the Historical Society and their contractors that have done in the preservation and still moving forward with that. I also attended the menorah lighting, which was great. I didn't realize the moves that Jonathan had. There were some phenomenal moves you got there.
Oh, thank you.
The Christmas tree lighting was also fantastic, and with Santa Claus, that was on the 7th, and all the events were well attended. At the Ford Fascia House, I just wanted to say that Mrs. Fula, who was a Rockaway resident up in the Birchwood section, she did a fantastic job reading the stories there, bringing it out for the children to participate in that. I don't know the calendar dates, maybe Mrs. Seeger may be able to help me, but we do have Santa coming around in the fire trucks with the fire departments throughout, and I believe even Green Pond is also having theirs, which I believe that's on the 23rd of December.
I'd have to check on Facebook here.
Yeah, either Facebook or we have it online, or we can put it online to let the public know when that's happening. I know in the Telemark area, when Hibernia comes around with Santa, they give out toys and candies and stuff like that for the kids, and they look forward to it, and I'm sure it's the same throughout all the other departments, including Green Pond. I want to congratulate the new hires in the PD. We got new patrol that come in. I'm sorry for taking your mojo there. And I wanted to mention, as I did last time, that the American Legion is doing a tree sale, and Lake Telemark is also doing a Christmas tree sale, so come out and support those two not-for-profit organizations and bring some money in and getting some fantastic trees. Just to add on top of that, Lake Telemark is doing a toy collection, and if you don't buy a tree and you still want to donate, you're always welcome to stop by the clubhouse at 38 Telemark Road and just drop off a toy. It can be wrapped or unwrapped. And if anybody knows in the public of a family in need, that you can also reach out either to Lake Telemark or to me on my town email at tkelly@rockawaytownship.org, and just give me a little bit of a hint of somebody that's having a hard time, or a family that maybe might need a tree, or maybe their children need some toys and some clothes. So just think about that. And lastly is I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And Mrs. Seeger's going to read off those dates.
Mount Hope Fire Company, December 15th, 10 a.m. in the morning. Hibernia, December 22nd at 12 noon. Birchwood, December 22nd at 1 o'clock. Marcella, December 23rd at 11. White Meadow Lake, December 23rd at noon.
Great. And Captain Ryerson, if you could just let those new hires, congratulate them as well. So I appreciate that. Looking forward for them on the road. That's all.
Mr. Kelly, just one more question for you. A few meetings ago, you had requested a report regarding the Boveyville sewer assessment. Have you received that report?
I have not. I haven't got any information, actually. I don't know if Mrs. Seeger have anything with regard to that at this moment.
All I can tell you is they're still working on it, and we got some more information this week. We are doing a lot of research on it. So.
And when you say we're working on it, who actually has it now?
I could tell you Mr. Sheard's working on it, the engineer, the assessor, the tax collector, and the law firm.
And did we figure out if there are individuals that are on that sewer that are not paying a maintenance bill?
I have not gotten the response yet from the person I asked it for.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Council Vice President Abrahamson.
First, I'm going to thank the DPW for repair works on West Lakeshore and North Brookside. There was a sinking drain, I believe, there, and they did a really nice repair job. They came pretty quickly and fixed it, too. I also want to bring up the police officers that were sworn in today. heading to the academy in January. I want to congratulate them, soon-to-be Officer Mitchell, Officer McAndrew, Officer Miller, and Officer Halfley. May they succeed in their endeavors in Morris County Police Academy, and Godspeed on the road. I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I hope all of those that celebrated Hanukkah enjoyed their Festival of Lights. That's all from me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Council President.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry. Councilmember Jackson.
Yeah, thank you. I also attended the Rockets dinner, as mentioned. It was probably my 17th dinner. It's always a great time. It's great to see the kids graduating the program and getting ready for high school. And it's kind of bittersweet because they're, separating and going to two different high schools. The menorah lighting ceremony was a lot of fun. Sue Gay, Brian Coward did a great job putting it together. Will from the DPW did a great job putting a blowtorch on his stick with packing tape to light the menorah. So that was pretty exciting to watch. The tree lighting, again, Sue Gabe and Brian Coward from Recreation, and I know Hank was there from DPW, and also there's a whole group of Boy Scouts that did a really good job. Everybody was trying to figure out who Santa was. And then I also did stop in on a rabies clinic. We have 2 rabies clinics every year. Suzanne, Joan, Kara, and Dan McDonald, the animal control officer, were there. It's great to see a great job if you like animals, to see them handle animals and walk in and get their shots. And I got to spend some time talking to Tim from the DPW, talked about his role and some of the work he does fixing some of the machines and all that stuff. So they did a great job, and we got a lot of animals with their shots. So that's it.
Thank you. Congratulations to our new hires. Thank you to all of the employees for the great menorah lighting and Christmas tree lighting events that took place. I believe it was during the menorah lighting event that there was a water main break. And I believe the water department was out there that day working on that. Anyone who was out for the menorah lighting noted how cold it was. So imagine being out there with a broken water main. So a special thank you to DPW and water department staff who were out there for that. Thank you to Scout Troop 160, who also assisted with both the menorah lighting event and the Christmas tree lighting event. And a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone. The mayor is not present today, so no report there. Next item we have on the agenda is close. Ms. Seeger?
Yes.
You have a report on behalf of the mayor?
Craig Babcock let us know that he does life hazard registration inspections, and he did 129 this year, 39 over last year's of life hazard registration inspections, and they're up, and 65% of the fees that they collect go to fire prevention to help education and the students learn. So they have completed all their life hazard inspections for 2018, in the year 2018 with their inspectors. They did a great job.
Thank you. Councilmember Kelly.
Mrs. Singer and Mr. Babcock does a phenomenal job, as well as Mr. Elko. They both have a passion for what they do. Is there are they restricted on having more of these inspections? Are they limited because of the time that they have allotted to do their weekly inspections? So in other words, are we not having other buildings to be a part of that or those inspections because we don't have the hours or the manpower? Or we do have enough manpower, it's just that's the total number that we have? Because you said it increased from 39 last year to now.
It increased by 39.
39, correct. So is it 39 new businesses or new inspections, or is it because we found time to be able to conduct those inspections?
It says here this year, thanks to the diligent efforts of Mr. Willinson, we are up 39 registrations, barring the unforeseen. This is one-time jump, catching up and correcting formerly unregistered people. So they try to get everything they can. And I will ask Mr. Babcock if if they can do it more than once. I
There was
think,
needs that they needed, there was additional that assist
yeah, I think
them.
they're only required to do it once a year.
Okay.
But I'll ask them.
Ms. Seeger, for the benefit of the entire council, could you email that report to us?
This report? Sure, no
Thank
problem.
Next on the
And-
agenda,
No, I just want to wish everybody a great season and a happy new year, too.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Next on the agenda, we have a closed session item, Resolution R-18-203, resolution authorizing an executive closed session in accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6 at seek to discuss confidential security issues, collective bargaining agreements. Is there a motion on this resolution?
Didn't vote on my motion. No.
Is there a motion?
Protest.
Under discussion.
I'll motion.
We need to
I
have
motion.
a motion
Yeah,
second to go
and then
in and have discussion.
Open public.
Excuse me.
I'll make a
Sergeant at
motion.
Arms, please bring the room to order. Motion by Abrahamson. Is there a second?
Second.
Is that Jackson? No. Second by Jackson. Is there any discussion with regard to Resolution R-18-203 before we vote on it?
Does anybody have it before me?
No.
No? I have,
Councilmember Kelly.
I do have a question on that. Again, under OPMA and following the guidelines that we have there, I believe it's 410-13, reading the litigation that was filed and receiving that just today, I don't have this on our closed session, so I would then move to amend Resolution 18-203 to include the litigation known as John P. Schmidt and Mary Hollenbach, docket number C-131-18, with the anticipated time to be resolved in 120 days from today to be available for the public to review. And I just,
Can you repeat the docket number?
the docket number is C-131-18. But before we read the motion, I
just want to make sure I have the motion down. All right, so motion is to amend the closed session resolution to add the litigation docket number with an anticipated time to be resolved of 120 days.
And Council President, I say...
There was one other part to that, didn't you? Didn't you have something after?
From today.
120 days from this date.
To be available for public review.
To be available for public review. So that's a motion that Mr. Kelly has. There was a second by Abrahamson. Hang on one sec, please. Is there any discussion about the motion to amend?
I do. I just wanted to first of all, it's amending the previous resolution that was prepared, I believe, from our town attorney. Is that correct, Mr. Yachafano?
What are you referring to?
I'm sorry, Mr. Yachafano. I'm referring to you created the R-18-203 resolution that I'm asking to amend.
I believe the acting clerk and I worked this out together, yes.
Did you approve it?
Yes.
Yes? I can't hear you, Mr. Yachafano.
I said yes.
Okay.
If you just pull the microphone closer, Mr. Yacofano, that would be helpful.
No, that's fine. I think, you don't have to do that. I just want to make sure. And do you have any issues with me amending the resolution to have the litigation discussed in closed session?
I don't think it's appropriate, and there's no exigent reason for it. That was my opinion, that I asked the clerk to transmit to the council president before the meeting. I don't think it's necessary.
Well, why would that be not necessary, Mr. Iatrofano?
I'm not discussing the matter in open session, Mr. Kelly.
right.
You have my opinion.
Okay, so that sounds like a reason to go into closed session, to understand that reason.
Well, I still have some questions.
Go ahead, Mr. Kelly.
I'm very sorry to the public. Mr. Iatrofano, have you received the actual complaint?
Well, the answer is I received, courtesy of the acting clerk, an email copy. My copy, you read a docket number from whatever you had.
I got an actual copy from the courts today. I went personally down there and grabbed it.
My copy does not have a docket number. I have, I'm sure, Ms. Clipperton submitted to me everything that she received.
Yes. She confirms that's the case.
And all I can tell you is the township has not been served. I haven't received any notification on e-courts.
Well, it's pro se. It wouldn't be in e-courts.
I don't know whether it'll be there or not, Mr.
It wouldn't.
Kelly. I don't run the system. Okay? I'm just saying I have everything the clerk gave me. It appears to be a verified complaint, captioned as you indicated, without a docket number on it.
And Mr. Iatrofano, as a verified complaint, what is usually the time frame for us to respond? Just on a verified complaint regardless.
I have some issues because I need to discuss that in closed session in terms of the response time based upon what I've been presented with.
So then you feel that it's necessary to go into closed session based on what you...
No, I don't feel it's necessary to close session. The response problem is our problem as township attorneys. We'll deal with it.
Okay, but to make it clear, Mr. Iatrofano, there are certain questions you're not going to answer outside of closed session, correct?
That would be appropriate.
Okay. The motion that Mr. Kelly made to amend this, do you have any issues with his motion to amend it? Any legal issues with his motion to amend it?
There may be, without the time to consider the motion, the appropriateness of amending the agenda at this point in time, and absent emergent or exigent circumstances, it is conceivable that you could create an OPMA or related violation.
Okay. But we're not going to get any answers from the township attorney outside of closed session, correct?
That's like saying you're not going to get hit by a car unless you step off the curb.
So the direct question, again, Mr. Iatrofano, is there are questions with regard to this litigation that you will not answer except in closed session?
The best advice I can give the council at this time...
Can you just answer my question?
No, I cannot.
Okay. If you're not going to answer my question, is there any other...
Can you accept my advice or not?
Mr. Iatrofano, I asked you a question.
My advice to
Is there
the
any
council
other
is that it's not
discussion
going
among
to
the
closed
council?
session at this time on this matter.
Okay, but that's your advice, but you've also made it clear you will not answer certain questions outside of closed session, two of which have been asked of you so far in this meeting. Is that correct?
You have my responses.
Okay.
I'm not playing...
All right, so
further discussion,
Council President.
you have further discussion, Mr. Kelly?
I do.
Please continue.
And Mr. Iatrofano, my only concern is, even though it's a verified complaint, or just in general a verified complaint, which I believe is 30 days for a response, is there a possibility there could be an amendment of that complaint to make it actually an order to show cause, where there would be an urgency to respond within a 48-hour period?
I'm not discussing that, Mr. Kelly. I've already advised you previously...
But that's my concern, to
that
go
it's
into closed
inappropriate
session.
to
This is our
discuss
last
this.
meeting of the year.
The council does not make legal decisions on the handling of cases.
Okay.
That is the job of the township attorney.
Okay, but if the council wants answers or has questions with regard to it, it's been made clear at this meeting the council will not get those questions answered outside of closed session. Now, if we could just keep the side conversations for a later time. I have the calendar date today is December 11th. If Mr. Kelly is correct, 30 days, give or take a day, would be January 11th. If our reorg meeting, as suggested, was January 8th, that would leave very little time for a response between the 8th and the 3rd of January. for the work that would need to take place to respond, as well as for questions to be answered of the council. So it seems to me that we have at least 2 questions that have been asked at this meeting that will not be answered outside of closed session. So if there are any other discussions, I will call Mr. Freelander. This is discussion with regard to the amendment before us.
Yes, yes.
Please.
How can you discuss that even in closed session when you get an email at almost 2 o'clock in the afternoon? I don't know what you were doing, but I was working. It was 112 pages.
Well, you know what, I understand, Mr. Freelander, but there was also social media, it was put out. I believe some of the members...
I'm not looking at social media at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
And I understand that, and that's fine. But I'm just saying, there's stuff that went out there, we didn't receive anything. So going down to the courts, it's an open public record to see the filing of it. Here's the filing of it. Here's the exact copy that I got from the courts when they wrote in the docket number.
When did you get it?
Today, this morning. I got it today at 10 o'clock.
I didn't know anything about it until I got the email.
I didn't know anything either until 10 o'clock. But Mr. Freelander, if I may, we have today as our last meeting of the year. If it's a verified complaint, we have a certain amount of time. If that then gets amended to an order to show cause, you're minimized the time now. You go from 30 days to 48 hours of a response. So the potentiality of that is there. So rather than try to react to something after the fact, I'd rather be proactive about it to protect it. And as you indicated before, there could be a potential settlement, and we need to discuss something now if in fact it does go to an order to show cause. That's just what I'm just putting out there. It's an opportunity. You may not know that, but you have to want me to describe that.
Sergeant at Arms, please bring the room to order.
Everybody should have all facts at the same time.
And hence, having it in closed session to have those facts presented to us.
No, presented by you.
No, presented to us. And so I think the public has a right to expect that the council is informed. We have this in hand. We have the opportunity. If there's no other discussion, then I will call this for a vote. The vote is to make an amendment to Resolution R-18-203. The amendment is to add the closed session item entitled John Schmidt and Mary Hollenbeck versus Rockaway Township, docket number C-131-18, with an anticipated time to be resolved of 120 days from this date to be available for public review. That is the motion. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Quinn.
I'll abstain.
Councilmember Friedlander.
No.
Councilmember Palumbo.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett.
No.
Councilmember Kelly.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson.
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson. President Jedonak.
Yeah, I know.
Sergeant at Arms, please bring the room to order. Yes. Hang on. That was the motion to amend the resolution. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yes, 2 no, 1 abstention. The motion to amend has passed. So now we will continue discussion on the resolution itself, which is to go into closed session. Is there any further discussion of the now amended resolution?
I have one question.
Mr. Kelly.
This question's for Mr. Yatrafano.
Mr. Yatrafano, is there any corrections that are needed to the current resolution that you provided and approved?
We believe the resolution to be satisfactory.
Thank you. No questions.
Hearing no further discussion, clerk, please call the roll on the amended motion.
Councilmember Quinn.
No.
Councilmember Friedlander.
No.
Councilmember Palumbo.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett.
No.
Councilmember Kelly.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson.
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Jetenak?
Yes, I count 6 yes, 3 no, 0 abstentions. Motion to go into closed session passes. We will recess to the conference room across the hall and then reconvene here after we exit.
You can't do this. Come on. Don't do this to the public.
Sergeant, I need you to approach, please.
How long you're going to be in
Mr. President, aren't you supposed to tell
We are going.
That's fine, that's fine.
Don't even look at anybody.
Come on, guys, give us a little break here. Can't somebody answer that now? How long?
Why can't you go up?
It's gonna be 3 hours again?
There's no reason.
There's 2 items.
We have 3 items for closed session. We are recessing across the hall, so you don't have to go anywhere. We don't have a time estimate. Thank you.
It was seconded, he never took it. Dictator. We're in a dictatorship. That's what he wants.
I have to share tomorrow when I get to the office.
See, you got a lot to say, right? Hey, it all works. You can't, exactly. You can't anymore. That is true. There's no way. That's terrible. Welcome to this place here. Doug, it's only 12 there.
Chairman, do you want me to make that motion on the other? I'd like to, if I could.
You know we have council. 7 a.m. That's what I don't understand. Why he's not explaining that, right?
Well, when I make a motion,
It is by code of his own.
yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Of course they are.
That's why.
Road here.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. But we're gonna do that before we go into closed session?
I sent it.
We're open to public record.
What happened when he stabbed somebody? There's been like 3 championships. Police department. Please. Where's Pat? Here goes our phone budget. No, but really.
Right.
You go get her in the
Use the microphone, please.
When you want. Sorry, Patty, can you go home? Mama Bear, what?
there anything open where it's me? Quick check.
Ed, wake up.
So I will motion. I will motion to end the closed session and go back into open session. Is there a second? Second by Abrahamson. Is there I'm sorry, clerk, please call the roll on that motion.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo? Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Yes.
President Jetenak?
Yes, I count 8 yes, 0 no, 0 abstentions. We're back in open session. Before we continue with the remainder of the agenda, we have a motion that is going to be read by Councilmember Kelly. You have a motion to make?
I do. Thank you, Council President. I wanted to make a motion coming out of closed session from our discussions in there. I want to make a motion to accept the memorandum of agreement between the Rockaway Township FOP Lodge 31 and the Township of Rockaway, recommending the Township Bargaining Committee continued the exception of a new collective bargaining agreement, and further to recommend to the Township Administration an amicably dismissal of the pending unfair labor practice complaint filed by the Township against the FOP Lodge number 31. I'm looking for a second.
I'll second it.
Motion by Councilmember Kelly, seconded by Councilmember Smith. I'm just going to reread because there was a section here that I think I lost. So the motion to accept the memorandum of agreement between the Rockaway Township FOP Lodge number 31 and the Township of Rockaway, recommended by the Township Bargaining Committee, contingent upon the acceptance of a new collective bargaining agreement, and to further recommend to the Township Administration an amicable dismissal of the pending unfair labor practice complaint filed by the Township against the FOP Lodge number 31. And that motion was prepared for us. That motion was prepared for the council by Labor Attorney Ryan in his handwriting, which is why we're both having some difficulty reading it, but I believe we have it accurately captured. Is there any discussion on that motion for us? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Those members who did not participate in the closed session, who may have been this specific closed session on this specific issue, who may be conflicted out, just a reminder to them, they know who they are when they vote.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson?
Abstain.
President Jetenak?
Yes. I count 7 yes, 0 no, 1 abstention. The motion passes. And Ms. Seeger, you're going to relay that to Mr. Ryan, our labor attorney?
Yes, sir.
on the agenda, we have item number 14, open to the public. Ordinance 2-5.14 requires that any comments or questions made during the public portion of a council meeting must be addressed to the council as a whole and not to any individual council member. The failure to comply with this ordinance may result in the termination of any further opportunity to address the council at that session. All speakers must first be recognized by the council president before speaking. All comments are to be directed to the entire council as a whole and not any individual council members. Speakers have 5 minutes each to speak per Township Code 2-5.14. At the conclusion of 5 minutes, an alarm will sound indicating that the speaker's time has expired, and the individual speaking is expected to immediately relinquish the microphone so that the next individual may speak. Failure to adhere to these rules will result in the council president using the gavel to reinforce adherence to the rules and when an individual's speaking time has expired. If at any time a speaker ignores the gavel or refuses to relinquish the microphone, the sergeant at arms is directed to assist the individual in relinquishing the microphone and remove the individual from the meeting as necessary. So we are now open to the public. First on the list is Dave Press. Please state your name and address for the record.
Dave Press, 71 Oakland Avenue. Because I haven't been here for a while, well, I wrote that before I spent 2.5 hours sitting here waiting for you people. I've had more time than usual to think about what you're doing to our town. Now I have to make up for lost time. Here's a novel idea. How about reducing the length of meetings by having a 5-minute limit for council members to speak? The word of the day is pontificate. The definition of this word is express one's opinions in a way considered annoyingly pompous and dogmatic. Thinking you're smarter than everyone else, you're not. Acting as if you were a lawyer, well, guess what? You're not one. You're not fooling anyone. There's an old expression, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. Some of you were elected because you unfortunately fooled enough people once. You're not fooling anyone in this town twice. Recently, a couple of you attempted to turn the township computer problem into a political issue, blaming the mayor for not giving you info on the problem. Maybe all council members will get a report from the mayor at the same time. Ooh, what a concept. Says, how much is it going to cost to open the municipal building on New Year's Day for the scheduled council meeting? Is the overpaid and underqualified acting/temporary clerk going to be paid extra to be there? Now we arrive at the ridiculous email that you sent to Attorney Achafano at 11 a.m. yesterday. Had to change that. More games being played. You knew there was no way Attorney Achafano could possibly answer the questions stated in your email. If he did, you complained that the answers are insufficient and not documented to your satisfaction. If he didn't, you're playing the old blame game by saying you can't make a decision without his response. But somehow you were able to create yet another problem by scheduling the reorg meeting for New Year's Day. You can't have it both ways. Hey, I know, why don't you schedule another one of your illegal special meetings to debate the date of the reorg meeting? Or are you tired of getting your hands slapped? 2 more comments. Congratulations, Mayor Puzio, and recall on.
Thank you for your comment. Next on the list is R. Wickens. Please state your name and address for the record.
Moved.
R. Wickens. Okay. Next on the list is Michael Ilardi. Please state your name and address for the record.
It's Michael Ilardi, 19 North Brookside Drive. I'd like to know how only 2 members think it was fair to speak up and have open to the public before a 3.5-hour closed meeting. We can't discuss anything that happened in closed meetings, so there's no reason for us to wait around 3.5 hours to speak now. You have absolutely zero consideration for us. I get up at 2:45 in the morning. I'm working 12 hours a day. Hopefully I don't have any of your gifts on my truck. And you let a non-resident, non-voting member of the township speak before the meeting and before the closed session. You take no consideration for the residents who you were elected to serve and who pay your salary. I'm proud to say I didn't vote for you, but unfortunately I have no choice but to contribute to paying for your salary. I brought up the Wawa a couple meetings ago, and another resident brought up the traffic problems, and they don't want to see the Wawa, and you said, don't worry, it's not going to happen, because the ordinances don't allow it or something. Instead of trying to make something work and make an improvement for the township, the big problem with the traffic on Green Pond Road is the interchange with Route 80, which the Wawa people said they were going to pay to correct. and you give no consideration to even trying to make it work. They're going to beautify the corner instead of having that corner that is just, there's no beautification there at all. And, I mean, we had Hewlett-Packard, 10 or 12 years ago, that ended up being a non-taxable piece of real estate. Of course, the township didn't pursue getting somebody in there that would be a taxable entity. And I also like, people that come up to this microphone to speak, at least the meetings I've been here, I would say about 98% of them are against what's going on here. Every other political situation you see across the country, 40% are for, 40% are against, and you fight for the other 20%. Here it's like 98% against. So, I mean, that should tell you something. And I'd like to know if you can explain to me what your vision is for 2019, because it's got to be different than 2018, because the public deserve more than that.
Thank you for your comment. Next on the list is Deborah Lindell. Please state your name and address for the record.
It's Deborah Linnell, 237 West Lake Shore Drive. I sent out an email this morning to our council president and vice president while getting my 3 daughters fed and ready for school, because I had nothing better to do, to send out an email. As per usual, it was ignored. I was requesting that the public portion be moved before the closed session. Obviously, it was ignored. Councilman Sackett replied and repeated the request. Thank you, and thank you to Councilman Friedlander for the same thing trying earlier. The rest of what I'm about to say would have been much more relevant at the last council meeting, but I couldn't say till 1 o'clock a.m. then to say it, so here we go. Congratulations to our new mayor, Mayor Puzio. Obviously isn't here, but I'm like delirious now, so whatever, I'm gonna keep going. It's only been a short time since he's been elected, but he's already shown in many ways his dedication to serving Rockaway's best interests, and I'm thankful for that. I know, see, I'm like delirious, okay. I just hold it like I'm gonna karaoke, okay. I know I speak for many when I say that it's a relief to know we have a strong leader who, just like his predecessor did, loves this town and the people in it. I think he has big shoes to fill, and that will fit him perfectly. Secondly, congrats to all these people behind me, the fellow township residents, even the ones that aren't here, for banding together during the painful and often tumultuous time since Mayor Dashison's passing, and also since we spent the last 3 hours together. That was kind of crazy. Let's continue our hard work to help Rockaway continue to move forward. We may not always be as united as we have seemingly been, but we can use those differences to our advantage or our detriment. That's our choice. We're lucky to have some intelligent, hardworking people among us who have emerged as leaders, and we should help them in any way we can. And finally, to the council, the crowds at these meetings may get a little smaller, and these childish antics, like making the public wait for the closed session to be heard, may keep some people away. But know this, we are still watching, listening, and staying involved. Now, whether you participate in these ridiculous actions or are complicit in them by your silence and blind loyalty, the residents, whether here tonight or not, will continue to hold you accountable. If you've learned nothing from the events of the last 12 months and continue to merely keep your seat warm and take up space and contribute nothing, or harassing fellow council members or ignoring sound legal advice, then I hope you're at least enjoying the end of your political career. That goes for those of you on the dais in both elected and appointed positions. I expect that the start of Mayor Puzio's term is also the start of consistent meetings, during which everyone in here, residents, council members, mayor himself, township employees, are all treated with respect, so we can get to the work that needs to be done, and there is a lot of it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the list is Kim Kleindienst. Please state your name and address for the record.
Kim Kleindienst, 8 Nokomis Avenue. First of all, I don't appreciate being told by the vice president after being here for over 5 hours to go home. I don't appreciate that. I don't appreciate it. You could have pressed before the closed session. So, despite what society has made of the Christmas season, for Christians, this time of the year is called Advent. It's a time of expectant waiting and preparation. We are to prepare for the coming of a new time through prayer, fasting, and repentance. John the Baptist was a famous Bible figure who preached of repentance and changing of one's ways to go in a new direction. He was described by many as a rebel, a freak of sorts, who was considered a radical, perhaps an extremist of his time. I've sat in church the last 2 Sundays listening to sermons about how God uses unqualified, uneducated social outsiders to change the world. Much like John the Baptist, many of us are preparing others, warning others to repent or change and be prepared for the consequences. So what am I doing during this Advent season to prepare? I'm coming to town council meetings where I have to sit for hours. I wrote this before tonight, by the way, and still not have my voice heard because the open public session is all the way at the end of the meeting. I'm downloading agendas from the whole year to try and figure out when this change occurred that I'm no longer allowed to voice my concerns. Did anyone else realize that up until July there were multiple open to the public sessions per meeting and that none were after closed sessions? Suddenly, on August 22nd, the first meeting after Mayor Mike's death, when Mr. Jedniak was mayor, not only were all public sessions removed before resolutions, but for the first time it was moved to the end of the meeting after the closed session, and it has remained that way ever since. That doesn't seem the most convenient for the public, not to mention allowing transparency. What else am I doing during Advent to prepare? I'm sitting at meetings and hearing certain council members, Mr. Kelly, subversively attack the character of another council member under the guise of saving taxpayer money through illegal health care benefits and 25-year-old sewer debates. Mr. Kelly, let me tell you one thing. Mr. Quinn, in my opinion, has more right to be on this board with his benefits, which have been determined in the court of law to be legal twice, than you do. He has never said a bad word about anyone, unlike you, has been elected to his post many, many times, and is beloved by people throughout this community for all the wonderful things he has done over decades. We see through your supposed concerns for our tax savings. If you were really concerned about saving taxpayer dollars, pay your fine and stop the frivolous lawsuits. And while we're talking about character assassination, I'm tired, Mr. Jedniak, of your email bursts with your passive-aggressive wording to demean and belittle people. It's too much. The people you attack just make me more inclined to realize that they're great people. Attacking Mr. Solberg for his, in your words, heinous felony behavior just made me realize one thing. I would rather have a person on council who made a mistake, owned up for it and apologized it, and has moved on to advocate for the betterment of his community in many scenarios versus power-hungry, rude, arrogant, law-skirting, ill-equipped, manipulative dictators who only care about their agenda. Your written response to Mr. Quinn in regards to him asking for a change of the meeting date was ludicrous. You had the audacity to write, and I quote, "Your effort to waste even more taxpayer money on needless litigation will only serve to erase the good work that this council has done to serve the taxpayers and will increase our property taxes." You also wrote, "It is my hope that you will begin to act responsibly so that our township may move forward on behalf of its residents." Did you hear what you accused him of? Wasting taxpayer money on needless litigation and hoping that he will begin to act responsibly. Did you plagiarize that from the open public sessions from the last 6 months from what we have been begging for you? So what is my advice during this Advent season of preparation? To those of you who sit by and allow character assassination to continue without intervening, be prepared. To those who manipulate government to serve their own agendas and vendettas, most of which is costing us unnecessarily legal fees, be prepared. To those who sit and do nothing, know that we are preparing. And Mr. Jedniak, you may think that you have won the recall by having your town employee delay and stall our paperwork. Just wait. There's more than one way to eliminate your power. Just as John the Baptist cried out in the wilderness, be prepared.
Ms. Klein, your time is up. Thank you. Please step away from the mic.
This bunch of radical extremist outsiders beside me.
Please remove the microphone and please assist her. Thank you. Next on the list is Emily Coleman. Emily Coleman. Next. Adam Selberg. Lisa Salberg.
She said you suck. I'll excuse myself.
No, why?
You waited 3.5 hours. You're good.
One more outburst, Sergeant at Arms, and please remove from the meeting. Next is Jim Orders. One more outburst by Mr. Press and the same.
Jim Waters, 48 Seneca Avenue in the Township. And thank you for your earlier introduction where we're not to address any of you people by name, but the council as a whole. I'll remind you again, as I have on multiple occasions, copy of the Constitution, you might want to look it up. I have a First Amendment right to address any one of you by name on any topic that I choose. My second point is, in my 71 years of life, I have never seen such a disgusting display of arrogance and disrespect for the people of this town who pay your taxes, pay our taxes, pay your salaries. This was uncalled for. You were given a chance to schedule your closed meeting after the public session. You chose not to do it. And I'm happy to say that what you have done is earned yourself another Open Public Meetings Act violation. And no, Mr. Kelly, I'm not going to cite the case. You can do what I did. You can look it up for yourself. Disgraceful. What else? You know, I didn't used to sign in here, frequently didn't used to sign in here because many occasions I didn't really have anything to say. But it didn't take long to find out that if I sat through a meeting here for an hour, I would have a multitude of things to address with you. If you people had any sense of responsibility or any appreciation for what you've done over the last years, you would get up from where you're sitting and you would leave here. Disgraceful. I'd like you to define inaudible for me. I assume you mean inaudible to you, because if I'm speaking to someone here inaudibly, they can't hear me. So if you would do me the favor of defining that, we would appreciate it. The NJ FOG website confirms that Faulkner forms of government don't have a statutory reorganization date fixed by statute or any other thing. It strongly implies it should be January 1st, but there is no statutory requirement that it be on the 1st. And whoever did their Google search didn't do a very good search to find the municipalities around us that hold their meetings on other than the 1st, because virtually everyone around us, you had to look for people who have held theirs on the 1st. Most of the ones I found, the first 2 Google pages, hold theirs on the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, or any day up to the 7th. Cherry picking your facts doesn't help. Yeah. Deliberate disrespect. It's really ironic that some of you here never used to listen to the township attorney, argued with every point he made, litigated against him, criticized him for doing his job, which was to support township employees against frivolous lawsuits brought by this very council. And now you hang on his every word. You want to throw him in front of the bus and under the bus so you won't be accused of screwing up your jobs as you typically do. And again, as Mama Bear said, you got a lot of nerve saying, why don't you all go home? Because we're working. That would be a start.
You definitely did.
Thank you for your comments. Sergeant at Arms, please bring the room to order.
Leave.
Next on the list is Pat Degnan. Please state your name and address for the record.
Pat Degnan, 88 Valley View Drive. Couple of things. First, I had to print up the agenda 3 times because it was changed 3 times, and it was still wrong because the July date was 2019. And maybe if the clerk did her job properly, then we might get a proper agenda. Also,
Stop-
we now
stop
have
for a moment.
someone
Ms. Degnan,
who is...
Ms. Degnan, hold on a second. I'm just going to make it clear to you that the 3 agenda revisions that took place were for information that was provided from the administration, okay? That's easily corroborated by emails we have from the administration, all right? So please continue.
Did you add those minutes to my time, please?
It wasn't a full minute, but yes, I'm adding 30 seconds.
Okay. Then the other thing, we have someone who is now a certified clerk, and I don't see why we don't take advantage of someone who is already certified, and she was not making as much as this young lady is making. And my main point today is because January 1st happens to be a Catholic holy day of obligation, you are infringing on the rights of all Catholics. And I will read to you from canon law what the requirements are for a holy day of obligation. It says, in the Catholic Church, the holy days of obligation are days on which the faithful are obliged to participate in the Mass. They also have to abstain from unnecessary works which hinder the worship to be rendered to God and the proper joy to the Lord's Day, or suitable relaxation of mind and body. This is ridiculous to hold it on New Year's Day.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Degnan. Mr. Waters, this council has not brought any litigation against anyone. If you recall correctly, former Mayor Datchison litigated this council for an investigation that it entered into.
I recall you litigated against
Okay,
him.
we're close to the public, Mr. Waters. Mr. Waters, we are close to the public. Sergeant at Arms, please bring the room to order. Another outburst, please remove Mr. Waters. Mr. Ilardi, question for you. Are you for or against the proposal of a Wawa in this town? I couldn't tell from your comments.
I'm for it.
Okay. So as I stated at the last meeting with regard to Wawa, Wawa came and did it, the representatives for Wawa came and did a presentation. The township code is antiquated. If that sounds familiar, you probably heard that in Mr. Schmidt's comments or email from this morning. Mr. Mayor Datchison and I agreed at the meeting just before his passing to establish a committee between the council and the administration to review the township code from an engineering, a land use perspective, so that the code can be potentially updated to allow projects like that one, though not necessarily specifically that project, to take place in Rockaway Township, because as I stated in previous meetings, the current township code does not allow for projects like that to even be considered. So that committee did not get established with his passing in August. We now have a new mayor. I have it on my list of conversations to have with the new mayor, because we also have a new township engineer. So we have 2 or 3 seats at the table that have changed since that presentation took place. That is on my list. In fact, since we're having the conversation here this evening, I'll ask Ms. Seeger if you would reach out to Mr. Puzio, Mayor Puzio, about reestablishing or establishing the committee that Mayor Datchison and I discussed at the meeting prior to his passing for that purpose, to review the code from a land use perspective and engineering perspective.
Will do.
Thank you. With regard to the salaries that are paid, I'm a volunteer. I've been a volunteer council member for 6 years. I'm likely the only council president who's a volunteer in the history of this town, as well as the only mayor when I was acting mayor who's a volunteer. There are others who donate their salaries as well. Other questions? Define inaudible so that we can conduct business and everyone can be clearly heard. If we can hear you, you're too loud.
Thank you.
And that is it. If anyone else has anything else, A motion to adjourn. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn? Motion by Jackson, second by Friedlander. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Friedlander?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbo?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Sackett?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yes.
Vice President Abrahamson? President Jedenak?
Yes. 7 yes, 0 no, 0 abstentions. Meeting adjourned.
Sorry we stayed for our town meeting.
I'm sorry. 8 yes, 0 no, 0 abstentions.
Good night, everyone.
Good morning.